Mornings in Kuala Lumpur. Yeah, it is the first one, so, you know, like, I'm from Russia, so in Russia they say that the first one is the best trial, so this is our first trial, so thank you so much for being here and supporting us in the first Creative Morning in Kuala Lumpur, and we hope to make it fun enough so you guys keep on coming back again and again. Today, let me talk about the person, until I call her in, let me talk about a little bit about the person who's gonna share with us about reality today. So, I was in Borders, in the bookstore, and I came across this. So this is a bookshelf in Borders, so like one of the biggest bookstores, and you have a book by Melizarani, book of poems. Next to it you have a complete works of William Shakespeare. So that shows me few things, that gives me like few thoughts about it. So on one hand is, I'm like, okay, good job getting her to talk in here. She seems like she is like really got that. Another thought that it gives me, maybe there is not so much of poetry as we wish to happen and spoken word happening in Malaysia. And the third thought that it gives me is like, how actually amazing is what she's doing. Because apart from being a journalist, spoken word artist, poet herself, another thing that she's doing is making an effort to organize a spoken word and poetry event every single month. If Walls Could Talk, that's the name of her event. So she's also in a way a great community builder who is making sure that the culture of the spoken word and poetry is here in Malaysia. So, so there is something else to add to this bookshelf. And book, by the way, is available over there. She brought it in here. You guys can check it out later. So with all this together, let me call up on the stage, and you guys gotta like prepare to clap very hard and to hear what you gotta say. Let me call up on the stage a journalist, a spoken word artist, a poet, Melizarani. So let's welcome her. Okay, take it away.
Loud voices are more important. Can you hear me at the back? Loud voices are more important. Can you hear me in the middle?
Yes!
Loud voices are more important. Can you hear me in the front?
Yes!
Loud voices are more important. They will tell you that loud voices are more important because the quiet ones are still water that run deep, and we don't want to fish in, we don't want to dive in, we don't want to know what they're thinking. Loud voices win election campaigns and poetry slams. Quiet ones write poetry in notebooks, keep them in folder pages under the bed until they find someone worthy enough to read it. But it's not about how loud your voice is or how quiet your voice is. The point is you have a voice and you need to use it. So hi, my name is Melizarani T.Selva. On most days, I am a journalist. On every other day, I am a spoken word poet. My duty is to tell you stories. As a journalist, I work for the Star newspaper, which is the leading English newspaper in the country right now. And my job is to tell the truth in the newspaper. But we all know that that is not easy. Telling stories that are made for a newspaper that is served to a wide audience all over Malaysia needs to be shaped, catered, fitted into certain molds so that people understand and is palatable for everyone to accept. As a poet, I don't have to do it that way. I am not bound by laws. I am not going to wear the Sedition Act as lip gloss when I speak. I am just going to tell you stories. And as a poet, when I hold a pen or a microphone, it is my duty to stay honest and to be honest with all of you. But the question is, the reality is, how much reality do I serve up to you as a poet? As a poet, when I'm standing here today, I am bearing my soul to you. I bleed on page and stage for you to be entertained and hopefully a little bit educated about certain things that happen in our country and in our lives that we don't know how to talk about. But how much of it do I give it up to you? Do I stand here and rant to you about the string of ex-boyfriends I've had in my past life of 25 years? Or do I sit here and rant to you about how the government is going to revoke my passport if I tell you things I'm not supposed to say? Because the question is, reality is something that we are forced to deal with behind closed doors, after and off the stage. We never talk about it on stage. On stage, it's all magic. We're supposed to bring the magic to you. When a designer creates a work of art for a client, the client doesn't want to know how many cups of coffee you've had. They don't want to know how much sweat and tears or how much you've been through in that point of time in your art. They just want the art itself. They want to say, wow, that's a great job, I will pay for it. And then walk away. As a poet, I am very, very fortunate that I have the ability to be myself on stage, to tell you the truth no matter how ugly it is, but I weave it and make it beautiful, or at least I try to. So, to give you an example, I have to do a poem. Do you want to hear a poem? Yes, okay. So, some years ago, Malaysia announced that the Muslim word for God, can you say it for me? Can we say it nice and loud? Allah. I can't say that because I am not Muslim. Now, when I was growing up, I come from Selangor, the state of Selangor, and my job every school assembly on Monday was to stand up really straight and sing the Selangor state anthem. But there is a problem to that when there are certain words you cannot sing. So this is that song. Duli yang maha mulia, selamat di atas takhta. Lanjutkan usia tuanku, rakyat mohon restu bawa duli tuanku. Blank was what they told me to fill in instead of the A word, or Tuhan, or God, or Jesus, or Buddha, or Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, Lakshmi, or Saraswati. We'll figure it out eventually, but for now, it's blank. That they told me, the little girl in the navy blue pinafore, to say every time she stood up straight and sang with all her heart, remember, when we get to that part, you say blank, which is be silent and then finish the rest. Maybe that's why she never became a singer. Instead, she was a poet who still struggled to memorize words that were for her to recite and not realize deeper meanings and understand why she had to spoil the rhythm of the song, because they decided what was right from wrong, but never told her what to say when someone asked, how come you never say blank? As a sheet of paper, she wrote down her name, age, and classification of which blank she preferred to bow her head to. She was odd. I wondered if blank existed and what blank looked like. Did blank wear long dresses or a suit and tie? Or did blank speak English, Tamil, Chinese, or Malay? Or is blank here to stay during sunny days and stormy weather? I was never sure. If blank could spot me out of the 7 billion people, or hear my voice against the whines and whimpers of believers asking their wishes to be granted. But is their blank different from my blank? Or are we all just blank trying to fill in the blank? We keep quiet to all that we do not understand, comprehend the fragments of experience through open-eye meditation and the sound of silence resonating. Oh. As I put my palms together in front of colorful deities for 10 years, but saying, Our Father, who art in heaven, when I know deep down that the only attention I was vying for was from my father who was upstairs taking a shower, who educated me and explained that Islam is a profound religion, whose worshippers need no location of worship to worship, just a direction, and cautioned me never to trample on hungry ghost offerings on sidewalks, taught me that Christmas is more important than Santa Claus, and if you lit candles by the altar, you would be blessed, and that every temple is a GPS, an antenna to give you better reception to the higher power, which I used to refer to as blank. And I believed every threat of if you cross this line, then prepare to meet your maker. But what will I tell my children if they were made out of love from one man's blank and another woman's blank, not knowing which blank they really belong to? Because blank is not a word. Blank is not a state of mind. Blank is what we're still waiting to define, the divine. But I don't know when, and I don't know how. Till then, I am blank. From blank, from that poem, I am telling you the story of my country. If you've never been to my country, when I perform in Australia, India, in any other country, I like to do this poem because this is a micro example of a macro problem. This is not just a Malaysian situation. We have problems with religion, whether it's personally or whether it's on a global front or even as a country. We don't know how to talk about it. And the thing is, the beauty of being an artist and a poet is that you need to use these small examples to tell a bigger story, a story larger than yourself. About poetry, I always tell them, you are a vessel of stories. Your duty is to deliver the story. Your poem is bigger than yourself. How do you know how much reality do you serve into a poem? You do that by knowing that that poem is not about you anymore. I started the poem by telling you about how I was a young girl in a blue pinafore in school, doing a song that I didn't really understand. But then I moved on from there and tried to relate to you about a problem that we're all facing here and everywhere else. In Malaysia, the beauty of it all, I like to call it a beauty, is censorship. People say that we are stifled, our voice is silenced, there is no hope for journalism and there is no hope for the written art, or even art for that matter. You can go to prison. Yes, you can. But this is your chance to innovate. I love being told what I cannot say because I will find 100 different ways to say it anyway. Because you told me what I cannot say, but you never told me how I should not say it. And that is the power of an artist. Whether it is a written art or a painting or even music, that is the power that we hold and we need to keep moving. But it's difficult as an artist. There are so many restrictions. There are so many things that hurdles that we have to jump across. As a poet, I might not get published. I did. That took a while. Okay? There are certain stages that I might never make to, or I can, but you push, and sometimes the reality is you will get very, very tired. And how do you sustain that? Last year, I learned that the one way you can sustain your art and yourself being an artist is to find people like yourself, is to create a platform and a space that brings people together to remind each other that we are all vessels. We're all trying to achieve the same cause and tell the same story or different stories in the same way. So that's how I started If Walls Could Talk, which is a poetry open mic. It is the only poetry specific open mic in KL right now, which I love and has grown into a year old come June 9. Now, the reason why if Walls Could Talk exists is because young poets as young as 10 years old and poets as old as 62 will take the same stage, will each have 5 minutes to tell you their story. In that moment, we are all equal. You can be published, you can have done TED, you could have done a lot of things in your life, but in that moment, in that space, we are all the same. There is no hierarchy. We're all trying to listen to this poem and try to figure out, how do we tell this story about our country? How do we go to an international level and carry these stories, which are ours, which are all of us to share? I like to think that the best stories are our own, because you are the best subject you will know about. You know everything about yourself. Before looking at books and movies for references, look at your own life. Look at everything that you've ever been through and measure and decide how much pain, how much love, how much tears you want to give to your audience. How much do you want to put into your art? And when it gets tiring, bring yourself to organize something larger than who you are. Make space for other artists to exist, like this space. Make room for other artists to grow with you. Competition is excellent. It is fantastic. It keeps you going and growing. But you need to have friends. You need to have people that want to work with you, or at least want to try working towards the same goal. I did my master's in the Malaysian Indian identity. And a lot of my poems, or rather the style that I write in, always hooks back to being Malaysian, because I am not going to talk about picket fences every time I want to talk about love and borders. I've never seen a picket fence until I traveled overseas. So I can only tell you things that I have been through. And that's what I did with Taboo. For a long time, before I had all these titles to my name that I earned over the last 5 years, I was always known as the poet who told stories of all the things her mother told her not to do. And I'd like to believe that I'm still that poet. So one thing that I've always wanted to highlight was the small minority community, which is the Indian community in Malaysia. And I want to show that this community, no matter how tiny they are significant as an example of representing the community at large all over the world. The same problems that we have here is the same problems that you might share, or someone in Russia might share, or someone in Australia, or even in India. And so I coined this term, and this poem is called Indianity. I struggle with my identity, or should I say my Indianity, though I proudly tick Indian on tiny checkboxes of forms trying to fit me into a category, yet I am nothing but a statistic if the category denies me. Denying my stubborn tongue, taking after the tyrant to colonize my ancestors instead of my mother's own tongue. It's not my fault that you're sensitive and highly strung, because I call my appa daddy, because Melissa is so English before it ends with Rani. Do I need to eat on banana leaves with my hands to pledge allegiance to the Aner next to me? Or will I forever be condemned to being a minority of the minority, who would rather order tose in Malay because she can barely count to 3 without getting cringes, flinches and stares? Wunda, Rinda, Moona? And you laugh at me, tease me to my face and curse my family, who raised a girl who wore dresses instead of saris. At weddings where I should be paired to my husband-to-be, alas, it is my chastity that you question, because no black putu decorates his forehead of ambition. Get straight A's for PMR, SPM for the community and the quota. Go to university, be a doctor and make us proud, Kana. We Indians must stick together and be there for each other. But on my graduation day, you tell me MASCOM is not in favor. My degree can't make me an engineer, but I can read your news. Vanikam. செய்திகள் வாசிப்பது நான் தான் உங்கள் Melizarani. So teach me, and I will say more than the introduction. Give me a chance to make up for my A+ English tuition, despising the language you so crudely mentioned, the lack of my ability, and question my spirituality, but you're the one who taught the Rakyat a string of our native obscenities. Our bloodlines run deep along the rivers of the Holy Ganga to Tamil Nadu, Bangalore and Karnataka. I may not kneel and pray like you, but I believe in karma, which I thought you did, but you stuck to bar brawls and self-righteous gangsters. Yes, I know you didn't do it. Must you take to the streets to prove your innocence, wave your picket signs and throw stones at the government representatives who you claim know nothing of your plight and woe because they built the Tamil schools you refuse to go, sponsored your babies and businesses and fought corruptly to make a stand that we are significant as an 8%. And they said, Nambike, trust that tomorrow will be a better day. But trust is blind when that is the only Tamil word they can say. To cover empty promises and get your vote with free biryani dinners. They're no saint, cause we're all sinners. While they're greedy for power, we're only greedier. Not enough, we holler for more temples and festival holidays and discounts for my brother who chose the Parang to hear Rajini and easy money because it paid the bills and he couldn't sit through a law degree. Forgive me, but hell hath no fury like a woman's scorn because she chose friends lighter than her shade of brown or darker on the color palette from white to black. And you frown at me, wondering why I didn't stick to the clan. The Indian boy was good enough, but I wanted a man. And I watched you, grinding your teeth, chewing at what is hard to swallow, at principles and traditions you don't understand but follow, knowing that you'd be frowned upon if you told me to stick to my own kind, but you already are, because when your Malayali doctor comes home with a Punjabi, it's not fine. But I hold out my hand towards you, seeking your acceptance beneath my frustration and expensive education to read our history, locate our past and affirm the present, shine the dim future and light the pathway for our descendants. So look at what you have in the palm of your hands and look no further. We've sat down too long at mamas over Nescafes, blaming each other for what we can't have, don't have, should have, when we already have the human ability to succeed in all that we choose to be. Remember that a community with problems is different from a problem community. Between Bharatanatyam spins and tabla beats, you and I are no different. So polish your cultural armor and let old grudges go. Life may be rough, but it need not be another vaudeville drama episode. Though I didn't climb Everest or start an airline, I can't make dal curry to save my life. And I'm not divine, but accept me as I accept you with arms open wide because I choose to tick Indian as I am on the inside. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions for me? Natasha asked me to ask, do you have any questions for me? Yes. No. Hello.
You're so awesome.
I don't know, man. I'm just doing.
What makes you so powerful? I want to know what inspires you.
Okay. I believe in what I am saying to you. I know that what I am telling you is honest and important and true, and I know it for myself. And that's why I sound really strong, because I believe it. You can tell when someone doesn't believe in what they say. So I guess that's what I'm really doing. But of course, hey, I still have stage fright. I still circle around the toilet like, oh my God, do I have this? Do I have this? Like, can I do this? I came up with this little mantra that I tell myself every time I go on stage. You are human, you are woman, you are honest, you are poet, and you can hold your own. And that's what I tell myself, and maybe you will find your own mantra that works for you. I hope I answered your question. Anything else?
writing a poem, and then I'm curious, what's the process that you have to write a poem and then practice it so you can rehearse it and deliver it the way that you do?
Okay, so when I teach my 9-year-olds, we always talk about an issue. We either make lists or we talk about very micro examples, like I said. So one of the things that I like to talk to my kids about is if you could change the world, what would you do? And then you'd be surprised. I had one 9-year-old that told me if I could change the world, I would change it from a sphere to a square. Because then it would stop spinning so quickly and we would have more time. And that is a poem by a 9-year-old kid. So you don't really know where you're coming from unless you start putting them down on paper. It could be the littlest things. You ask yourself questions. You talk about what is important to you. But the most pivotal thing of all is that it has to be yours. You can only talk about what you have been through and something that has happened to you. And then it's about how you craft it. And then that's how you put metaphors in. And you start weaving these examples together to form a poem. But it all starts with a question. You ask yourself that question, you ask yourself how you feel about that, and then you talk about it, and then you deliver it. But of course, not every poem is suitable for every audience. At some point, you will learn how to choose what stories are suitable and what stories are not. I can't come here and tell you my deep dark poems of this boy I once dated a long time ago, and it's but I love this poem and I love it, and it's called To the Matcha That Got Away. And I love it. But you know, something people always come and ask me is, hey, all the poems in your book, are they like true stories? Yes, they are. They have to be. Because, like I said, you must be honest and you must bare your soul. But there are ways to do it. There are ways to do it while protecting yourself, while not feeling naked all the time when you're on stage. I think it's a process of learning what is important to you and what is important to your audience, and then finding a bridge in between, and that's how you create that art. I hope that's clear. Anything else? Oh, hi. Hi, Jason.
Have you gone into trouble so far by the authority, and could you share?
Okay. So I run this poetry event with Art for Grabs. It's a festival run by Pankite and a few other activists. And every time I run a poetry event called Poetically Correct, 4 special branch guys will be there watching. Every time they will be there watching the poets tell stories about politics, about government. They're always there. And, I've not gotten in trouble. I'll tell you something interesting. Yesterday, we were talking about how if you are vocal overseas, the government will revoke your passport and bar you from leaving the country. So all my journalist friends got together and looked up on the internet whether our passports we have been barred. And then they asked, and then my friend Vincent asked me, hey, Melissa, if you get barred, will you be flattered? And the thing is, I think I might be, you know? I think I might be, because then I'm like, oh my God, they heard me right up till up there. But I think that you know, these rules are in place, even though they don't make any sense. They're going to be there. So you just have to be clever as to how to work around it. And fortunately, I have been successful in doing so for the last 5 years. I would like to continue doing that for the next 5 years as well. Thank you. Anything else? Anything else? Yes. Hi.
Hi, I'm just curious, how hard did you find it to write in 2 languages for your poems? And to what extent do you think you were censoring it or changing it a little bit for either your audience or yourself? Were you ever afraid that maybe your audience couldn't completely understand it because it was in 2 different languages, and maybe it was a foreign audience, for example, here or abroad?
Okay, so that's a great question. When I did TED in Mumbai, the Asia's largest TED, I talked about, I did Indianity as a poem. And they forced me to change all the words in Malay into English because no one would understand. I think the main thing that you have to be as a stage performer is you have to be very flexible. Yes, you would have written that poem and all that, but nothing is sacred. When it's time to change and to suit your audience, you do that. But never will I ever sacrifice what I'm trying to say just to make it easy for my audience to understand. I cannot underestimate my audience. Even a child can understand what I'm saying, or an adult. But it's how I write it out. If you notice, I always use simple words. I always talk about stories that bring back to myself. I am the center of it, so I bring it back to myself, which makes the child or anyone feel like they can relate to me. If I start talking to you, the universe is this, and this is how religion is, and I start preaching to you, I am no different than any other public speaker. The point of poetry is to be personal, and that's how I reach out to you. But of course, this takes time to learn. When there are certain poems that you do and then you're like, nobody gets it, and then you're like, okay, that didn't work, and then you have a backup poem to go with. But like all good writing, it's a rule of thumb. If a child can understand you, you are successful.
Right. But I guess I think what's interesting about your poems is there's a problem with translation sometimes. So it's not just about the word choice, but do you find it difficult when you translate, and sometimes the meaning is lost in translation? Maybe something in Tamil, it's different in English.
Yes, it is. Yes, it's very, very difficult to translate poetry. What I have tried to do is I will say the word in Malay and then I will explain the word in English. And that is hard to do because in poetry there's flow. So I have to write extra sentences sometimes to weave that into the poem. But I have to do it because if I just purely translate and not say the word on stage, that's not what I stand for. I'm Malaysian, I'm coming here to tell you a story, and this is the Malay language. This is how the language sounds like. I want you to experience that language, but here's the English translation. So instead of looking at it as translation, I like to look at it as subtitles. That's why I like to do it.
Fair enough.
Okay. Anything else?
Any last question?
Fantastic! Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Melizarani, for our morning shot of creativity and morning shot of inspiration today. So while I run and grab a clicker, let's just give it all for her and